Hey guys, welcome back. This is the lecture number 60 from our bootcamp series. In the last lecture, we discussed about has one through association as another way of implementing one-to-one relationship between two models. In this lecture, we're going to discuss about a very special association supported by Rails, and that is polymorphic association. So let's start with the polymorphic association. Here we need to understand that what a polymorphic association is and what we can achieve by implementing a polymorphic association. So by implementing a polymorphic association, a model can belongs to more than one other model on a single association, or you can say that we need polymorphic association when multiple parents models are there for a single child model. In such cases, the polymorphic association provides us a great way to implement one-to-many relationship. To understand that what the problems we can have without having polymorphic association, let's understand a case and try to understand this as an example. Suppose you have an application where you have three models: event, article, and news, and you have to implement association with comments as well. And in real world, you can also consider also realize that suppose there is an event and there is a feedback for multiple feedbacks or multiple comments on that event, and there is an article or blog and there are multiple comments on that blog, and on a news there are also multiple comments can exist. Okay, so this is the real world case that an event can have many comments and an article can have many comments and a news can have many comments as well. Okay, now if anybody wants to implement this relationship using a conventional has many and belongs to association, then how he can do that or how one can do this. So this is the conventional implementation of a one to many relationship that has many comments, has many comments, has many comments in event, article, and news model respectively, and belongs to event, belongs to article, and belongs to news inside the comment model. Okay, but can be some problems as well. Okay, because at a time a comments can be exist for event only or on article only or on a news only, because event, article, and news, all three require comments, but these three are different, completely different real world entities. Okay, so we cannot create a comment for all article, event, and news. So we will only refer a comment for an event only one time, or for an article only one time, and for a news only one time. Okay, you know how we can do that. So we need to store foreign keys into the comment table, that event id, article id, and news id. Okay, this implementation is completely working solution, but never preferable and never efficient, because practically a comment can belongs to only one resource at a time. Okay, I mean at a time you can create comment only for event or article or news model instance, but not for all. And this is not a real world case as well. For example, let's try to implement it. Uh, Here I have an example application where I have three models, and this application dedicated to this lecture only. So here we can see that I have an article model, I have an event model, and I have a news model as well. Okay, and this is the schema for this example project. In this schema you can see that articles table, events table, and news table. Okay, now we can create a comments table. So Rails G model comment, and say title listing, and how we can do that. Sorry, how we can add foreign keys here. There are two ways to add foreign keys. Okay, either we can add references or either we can add integer values here. Okay, so let's say let's try to add foreign keys by references. So if article references, event references, and news references. Okay, and now run the migration. Rails db migrate. Sorry, else bd else db migrate. Now you can see that we have a comment model with title attribute and article ID, event ID, and news ID as a foreign key. But here you can see that each of the article ID, event ID, and news ID has a null false. It means it has a not null constraint. So you can create comment, but sorry, in real world you just want to create one comment for one resource at a time, but here you cannot do that. Why? Because you have to follow this not null constraint here. So if you create a comment, then you have to provide article id, event id, and news id. Okay, without providing each of the foreign keys you cannot create a comment. Then in that case, either you have to remove this null false from here. Okay, else you have to make a polymorphic association here. So we will see that what problem we can have if we provide an only, sorry, any of the foreign key and missing other two foreign keys. Okay, so but before that, let's try to implement, let's say, has many comments here. Sorry, has many. Save it and do the same thing for event table, and again the same thing for articles table as well. Save this and open the rails console. Okay, and in rails console, you let's try to find an article, existing article, article dot first. Okay, so here you can see I have an article created in my database and I got this from. Okay, now I want to create an article, a comment for this article. So what, how I can do that? So comment equal to article dot comments dot create, say title, and let's say example comment. Okay, and I will call comment dot save, and it will return me false. Okay, now if you want to see what are the errors that why you are not able to save the comment, then you can do this like comment dot errors. Event must exist and news must exist. Okay, so here you can see that I am only passing article id here, and event id is nil, news id is nil. So this comment cannot be saved. Okay, now suppose I provide example, sorry, news id here. Let's say news dot first dot id, and event id like event dot first dot id. Okay, now if I save this, now I'm able to successfully save the comment into the database. But this is not a good case. Okay, or this is not a preferable solution. This is completely known as, can be called as the novice implementation. Why? Because why I have to provide event id and news id every time if I want to save comment for article, and why I have to provide article and news ID if I have to create comment for event and same for the news as well. Okay, and we can avoid this situation by just rollback our comments integration. Okay, let's say Rails DB rollback, and in this rollback the migration here you can see like now in schema, we don't have comments table because we have rollback that. So here you can delete it like, let's first open your migration which has generated the comments table into the database. So here you can do it like t dot, sorry. Okay, so here you can do it like t dot integer, and here you can provide article ID, and then remove this everything, and here also article ID, and make these references as integer. Okay, And here let's make it news id and remove this line null false and foreign key true. Okay, and remove this one as well. And now run the migration. Okay. So let's run Rails DB migrate and open your schema table file now. And in the schema, you can see that now we have no not null constraint for article ID, event ID, and news ID. So now we can save comments separately for article or event or for news. Okay. So now open Rails console as well. Rails console and find the news.first. Okay, now this is the news. Okay, and now if you will create a comment for it, to comment equal to news dot comments dot create, say title, make it here sample comment. Okay, now save it. So now you can see that the article and event are required here. Events are missing. So let's do that. Comments dot save, sorry, errors. Okay, so here you can see article must exist and event must exist. Why? Because we have defined belongs to article, event, and news here. Now we can provide optional true here. Okay, because we removed the not null constraint. Okay, so now we can provide optional true and we can save that. So let's exit your console and restart it again. And now let's find news first. Now let's try to create a comment for this news. Okay, now you can see that the comment has been inserted into database. Why? Because we just make it optional true, but this is still this is still very inefficient solution. Okay, and not preferable here. Why? Because you are creating comment for news id or for a news, but you are still passing article id and event id as nil. Now let's try to create a comment for article. So find the article first, article equal to article dot first. Okay, so we have article and now create this same comment for this article. Let's make it article dot comments dot create. Okay, so now you can see that article ID is one, but event ID and news ID is still nil. Okay, that means whenever you create a comment for any of the resource, like for article or for event or for news, then you have to pass at least two foreign keys as null, and it is very impractical. And why you are storing null values for foreign keys? Okay, so that's why we can use polymorphic association here, and we can simply make this a very efficient solution. Okay, by using polymorphic association. And now how we can do this using polymorphic? So here you can see that we have added event id, article id, news id, and let's take in schema as well. So open your schema file, and in schema here you can see title. Okay, article id, event id, and news id inside the comment model. We can remove all these three attributes and we can add let's say commentable type and commentable id here. Okay, and that will be enough. And then no matter for what models you want to store multiple comments, or for what object you want to store multiple comments, you can simply provide its parent type and id of the parent and its parent instance id. Okay, and then it will be easy to implement the polymorphic association. So now let's do that, or let's see how we can do that. So first generate a migration that we need to remove this article id and event id and news id from comments table. So let's remove, sorry, exit from the console first. Here it rails the migration, add polymorphic, add polymorphic entity to comments. Okay, now generate the migration, and in this migration we will add, let's say, add column and table name here. You know how we can add attributes to an existing table, so add column comments here and then commentable type, and then let's make it a string, and add column, table name, comments, and here you can make commentable id. Okay, and then it should be integer. Now we need to remove article id and news id and event id from the comments. So let's make it remove column and add comments, article id, sorry, it's typo mistake here, and it's type. Okay, and same thing for event and same thing for news. Okay, now let's run this migration. Rails db migrate. Here you can see open a schema. In schema, you can see that we removed article ID, event ID, and news ID from the comments, and just added commentable type and commentable ID in it. Now we need to change our comments model implementation. That here we have done belongs to article, belongs to event, and belongs to news. What we can make here, that we can make it like belongs to commentable and polymorphic too. This is how you can implement belongs to association for a polymorphic model or a polymorphic association. So belongs to commentable. Okay. Now this commentable can be event, article, news. Sorry, or article, event, and news. So let's make it has many comments as commentable. Same thing for news and article model as well. Okay, save it, and same thing in article. Okay, now we made the implementation polymorphic like this. Okay, and this is what we needed. Okay, now we can simply avoid storing foreign keys into the comments table, and we can just provide the commentable type and commentable id, and we can easily identify that what for what model we are creating comments. We can easily know that we are commenting create for event, article, or news. Okay, now open your Rails console, and now we will create comments for each of the event, article, and news. So first let's create a comment for article. So find the article dot first. Here you can see article, and now article dot comments dot create, say title, sample comment for article. Okay, so here you can see that Commentable type is saved to article, and commentable id is the id of the article for which we are creating comment. Okay, now you can do the same thing for news as well. Let's say news equal to news dot first. uh, Write the same command for news, just replace article by news here, and news, and make this title as example comment for news. Okay. Here you can see the commentable type is news and commentable ID is ID of the news for which we are creating comment. Okay. Now let's do the same thing for event. Event equal to event dot first. Okay, and in this command just replace news by event and create the comment for an event. So event dot comments dot create. So here you can see that commentable type is event and commentable id is the id of the event for which we are creating the comment. Now it's very efficient and a very practical solution that we simply avoid storing null foreign keys into our comments table. We are only creating comments for one resource at a time, but still we are not wasting the space inside the database, and we are following the convention of rails as well. If you can see here that now our comment model is dry, we do not have to define three belongs to association here or any number of belongs to association from all the parent model where your from which your child model belongs to. Okay, so and this is the same has many comments, and we just simply define that as commentable. And now we can avoid storing null foreign keys into our model as well using polymorphic association. Now you can see that how we can find all the comments for an event. So let's do it is simple as we do in all has many association. Then we can do event dot comments. Okay, and you can do the same thing for article dot comments, and you can do the same thing for news dot comments. Okay, now okay, and if you have to find uh, an article or parent of a comment, then you can simply do let's find the first comment here. Comment equal to comment dot last, or let's say first, no matter. Then you can simply do comment dot commentable. You can see that comment dot commentable is event here. Now if you do the same thing for comment dot first, you can see this comment is for article. Comment dot commentable type is nil, commentable type id is nil. Okay, maybe this is created before we remove the foreign keys. Now let's try to find comment dot second, or the second comment. Comment dot find two. Okay, still nil. Let's find how many comments we have. Comment dot count. So we have comment. Let's find comment dot three. Okay, here we have commentable type article and commentable IDs uh, one. So let's find comment dot commentable. Because here you can see commentable is article, but you cannot do it like comment dot article. You will get an error, and you cannot do the same thing for news and events as well, like comment dot event. You cannot do the same thing for news as well, comment dot news. Okay, you will get error. Why? Because method missing, undefined method news, because now we do not have belongs to association defined inside the comments. We have defined polymorphic association inside the comment. So you just need to make uh, you need to call it via a your polymorphic association name. Like for example, here we made it commentable, so we need to find comment dot commentable. And suppose if you have make if your application contains model where multiple models has many images, so you should make your image model as imageable. Then you just need to find image dot imageable, okay, or some, let's say, product dot imageable or image dot imageable. Sorry, got very confused here. Okay, so you just need to call it via your polymorphic association name, not with the direct parent name. Okay, in for example, here our comments table belongs to event, article, and news models, but as commentable. So we cannot call direct comment dot event or comment dot article or comment dot news, but rather we should call comment dot commentable, and then we will get the exact parent of that resource. Okay, so this is how our polymorphic association works. And this is the example implementation of a polymorphic association. In real world, there can be several instances where you need to implement polymorphic association between your models. So a couple of more examples are like, let's say, product and category are associated with images. You can think of it like an e-commerce market, where a product can have many images, and the category of the product can also have multiple images. So in such cases you can implement image model in your application with in association with product and categories, where product has many images, category has many images, but make it imageable, not store product and category foreign keys inside the image table. That will be a very novice implementation of the association and unpreferable association. Another good example can be like association of addresses with a company and store models. Okay, for example, a company can have multiple headquarters, and an store can also have multiple locations. So in that case, you can make addresses addressable, and then this addressable belongs to company and locations or stores, whatever the case you want to implement, or where you want to reference article addresses model with multiple parent models. Okay, so you can choose based upon your needs. Okay, so that's all about the polymorphic association. Okay, and you can implement it for any of the models or any of the case where you want to implement polymorphic association. But you just need to consider one thing, that polymorphic association is required when you have a single child model which need to be referenced from multiple parent model at a time. Okay, so in that case you need to use polymorphic association. Okay, and that's all about the polymorphic association from this lecture. If you have any doubts or questions to understand this, please let me know in the comment section and I will be happy to answer there. But before leaving, let's have a look on the questions from polymorphic association. What is polymorphic association? In what cases you should use polymorphic association, and give some example of polymorphic association. Or you can also see, say, one more question here which I missed to add here, that what happen if you implement a single child model with multiple parent model in a conventional has and belongs to, sorry, has many and belongs to way. Okay, so you must need to know that what problems you can face if you do not follow the polymorphic association, or why it is unpreferable, or why it is not preferred if you implement multiple parent and single child one to many association without using polymorphic association. Okay, so I hope I give you enough details about the polymorphic association and its implementation. If you have any doubt, then just let me know through the comment section and I will be happy to answer. Okay, so thanks for watching this, and let's meet into the next lecture. Till then, tata, goodbye, take care, and stay safe.